Hello, you guys. Welcome back to All Reader, New Reader. It's me. I'm back. And with Jessica.
She's
Yay!
back. We're both back.
Yay!
We're back, just like the classic animated dinosaur's tale.
Oh, man. That is
Or is
classic.
it they're back or we're back? No, second
I
guessing.
can't remember.
Someone's back, and it's us.
And
Back
it's
street.
us.
That's who's back.
I know you guys were thinking, Maddie, you left for a week, so you probably wouldn't do this. And I was like, on the way back, I was like, hey, Jessica. Hey, can you be on the show?
I was saying the same to Maddie. I was like, I'm surprised you wanted to do it, but I'm really glad that we picked this book too, because just recently we were talking about how it was like missing from your back catalog. So I'm glad you filled it, and I can't wait to hear what you think about it.
Yeah, and I still thought, I just assumed I had it because I'm such a Terry Moore fan. But even though there's Terry Moore books I haven't read,
fake fan,
I just own them. You know what I mean? Because and I'm glad that we're reading this now because I still want to read the Terry verse of books, right?
Yep.
Which I've been putting off because I was like, well, it'd be fun to read together.
Yeah.
You know, and talk about. So it's still downstairs. I'm just like, well, when we get to it, I just will buy Terry knowing that I'm going to read Terry. You know, that's just
except for that one that we're not going to talk about today.
The one, yeah.
The one.
You know. But hello, everybody. Happy Tuesday.
Yeah.
How's it going? I was just in Scotland, you guys. And it was great. And I'd like to go back. I tried to go to some comic book stores. They weren't close enough to go to. So I was like, I know I tried.
Free comic book day is coming up soon.
Oh man, I might be able to actually go this time. I feel like I'm always busy.
One of my friends who has been getting into reading in the last year, I started her, of course, on Sheets.
Yeah.
And now she's out of control in a good way. She messaged me and she was like really amped about it, but I actually haven't participated in a really long time because I don't have the room to be like a collector of single issues. But I think, this time I want to if it makes her more excited to read, I want to do it. So yeah, we should do a little hop around town for sure.
I'd be down.
Yeah.
Because normally that's like Star Wars weekend. I mean, it is Star Wars weekend, and so I'm usually busy photographing Star Wars burlesque shows. So I'm usually busy, but I think it's chill this year. So yeah. Sometimes I forget I'm double jointed, and I'm like, ugh.
Scared yourself?
Yeah, and I'm like, oh yeah, duh. Yes, and I love haggis. Oh my god, I love haggis. I had a haggis burger and haggis pizza and regular haggis.
Haggis pizza?
Oh, it's so good. Oh my god. Okay. I was starving on the way out of Edinburgh Castle, and I was like, I saw a place like, we have haggis pizza. I was like, bet.
Well, I do like mashed potato pizza, as we discovered. So I can't be too judgy.
I am going to miss haggis a lot. I'm going to miss haggis. I'm going to miss good cider. Am I allergic to apples? Yes.
I was going to say, you always have a sneezing fit after you have cider.
Well, less so now that I had the nose surgery. And maybe it's just their stuff is better. I don't know. But I drink cider literally every day.
Wow. And you didn't
I'm not like a big drinker. No.
Wow. Okay.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does, actually.
Surprisingly and unsurprisingly.
I saw that deluxe. I was like, girl, Brenna, you can't be doing this.
No.
You can't keep releasing these. We already bought these fancy ones. And then she's like, what about Brenna?
Yeah, we can't be doing that. Our wallets can only go so far.
I got a lot of traveling to do, Brenna. I just came back. I'm going to Tokyo in 2 weeks. Listen.
She's globetrotter.
I know, but that's great because it's been it
has been,
6 years.
I was talking to, this is a little bit of a pivot, but what I haven't done since 2019 is go to a con. And we had ours recently. I did not go. But Amanda went. She had a great time. A lot of great stories. Really cool finds. Really cool pickups, which I'm sure will be on her YouTube channel if it's not already. But it was like, oh, I need to go. I know I need to go this year. Maybe that's a reasonable goal, I think, to a con. Not ours, but a different one.
Maybe Heroes. I would love to go to Heroes Con.
I know that feels like a big commitment, but potentially, I think that's in the summer though,
If you
isn't it?
pick one for if we can pick one for next year later this year, maybe we can get to see. If I know ahead early enough, I can try to get press passes.
I think there are some in the fall. Yeah, we should think
Japan,
about it.
but not Heroes Con. James, Japan, any international country over any con. Sorry.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, no question.
I mean, very seriously. Yeah.
Yeah. So we can do some more random talking at the end. Talk about Echo. Echo by Terry Moore. It's my first time reading it.
Very excited. This was like a kind of sentimental read when you asked me to do it, because I've told you this before, but you know, when you start reading comics, which I did like 13 or so years ago, roughly, you first read something typically that people are like recommending. So I had a coworker who gave me this list. He really talked me through like some of the foundational stuff. All the love and appreciation to him. But eventually I was like, I'm going to pick out new things. And I went to Half Price Books and found this copy for like $10. And it was thick. And it was interesting because it was black and white. And to be honest, at the time, I really hadn't seen that anywhere outside of like a newspaper. Yeah. So it just really...
he's such newspaper style too,
yes.
Which I love.
And it really struck me just as different. So I picked it up, and I have like a very vivid memory of starting to read it at like 9 o'clock at night one night. And I just read until like 11 or 12, which for me is late. I go to bed early. And I was like gripped the whole time. And that's what started me with Terry Moore, but also thinking like breaking the binary of like Marvel and DC. It probably was like this book, but I have not read it since then. I've been rereading a bunch of Terry Moore stuff so I can read the 25 years later. But because some of it felt very old. And this was one of the last ones actually for me to read to kind of get the characters back in my mind. So I was like really excited to reread it and now get to chat about it with you. So yeah, thank you for that.
Yeah. Hey, in the chat, I know I was distance-wise very close to you.
And distance-wise, too far from cows.
I didn't see a single cow. I saw a lot of sheep.
Ridiculous.
And seeing cows, but I want to go back. So let's go sometime. Just so I can take you to the Frankenstein bar because it's my favorite, and so I can go to the queer bookstore that I didn't have a chance to go to. So.
Wow, you went to a lame bookstore, but not a queer bookstore.
It wasn't close enough. I was busy. I had to work.
Interesting.
And I had to go see Baron Brady, which I kept telling people, like, I'm going to see Baron Brady. And they're like, who's that? And I'm like, one of the best Scottish comedians ever. But thanks, losers.
Loser, double loser.
So that's my first time. My first Terry Moore was, it wasn't Strangers in Paradise. It was,
Serial?
Oh my gosh. No. Rachel Rising. Sorry, I'm not totally jet lagged, but there's enough that we're like
totally.
The brain synapses aren't connecting, so words aren't happening.
You're totally fine.
You're correct. No fluffy cows is a crime, Mike.
We saw more Highland cows in Kentucky than Maddie did in Scotland. Just saying.
Yeah, I told a lot of people on the trip, I was like, they're like, you can see any Highland cows, and I was like, oh, you can drive like 45 minutes.
Yeah. And pet them, and there's this one like emo one that's kind of sad in the back.
And they put one regular cow in there who just like is cool to hang.
That regular cow, still when I think about it, it cracks me up because he thinks he's just one of the guys, one of the lads.
One of the lads. So yes, this is interesting. I feel like this book is so Terry Moore, but I also feel like it was a little bit of a departure from some of the other books.
Yeah.
I feel like it's a little less quippy than some of the other ones, but it also still had that quintessential, like, it's one of those things that like there's the Terry Moore gaze of women is so in it, but I still love it. You know what I mean? Because even it's one of those things that like women are going to be in interesting position or like doing interesting things, but they also feel very real. I think that's what's the difference is between like, and there's a lot, we can talk about the story, we can talk about those things, but I haven't been on my meds, so we're ADHD land. Let's go. The way any woman like changing their clothes or doing things is still like a very natural movement, which I always appreciate with Terry. It doesn't feel like a weird, unnatural, like, 90s Marvel, like they've turned like this for no reason. It's just like women doing normal women things. But like, I love that. Like,
yeah, and even like some of the humor, there's this one part, we'll get into the story, but there is one part where when I describe it, it sounds exploitative, and it's not at all, which is two women comparing boobs in the car. And it's like, if I just said that and I said, oh, like a man wrote and drew this, 80% of the time that's maybe going in a direction we don't love. Not always. But it's not at all that. But yeah, I totally agree. I think the character, it was interesting revisiting this because, again, it's my first. So everything from that helped me solidify him more in my mind. But what was interesting going back to this is even just some of the sci-fi elements. Like, of course, Terry Moore dives into a lot of genres. Serial is like really dark. Rachel Rising is like horror, right?
But it's like horror / Buffy Friends.
Yes. This had more, to me, moments of hard sci-fi than like Rachel Rising had hard horror or things like that. Like, I feel like it is kind of a great starting point, actually, for people who read a lot of mainstream, like DC and Marvel stuff. If they've never read Terry Moore, this is actually a pretty solid book to start with because it has so much like sci-fi, and the pacing I had some issues with, which we can talk about it, but I think it's paced like like an adventure movie, like an action movie.
Oh, well, it feels like it's staged that way. Like a lot of the I promise you talk about the story, but a lot of the panels and the way that they move feels as if I'm literally getting a storyboard. Like the way it just quickly, the angles that he takes, it's very impressive, honestly, that he's able to do something that's so fluid. And I think, and I like that it's black and white because I think it's easier to kind of move through that medium that way. But of course, I love his style regard. I love his art desperately.
Yes, though you still do get one thing that's consistent across the board is there's a bit of same-facedness.
Oh, always, yeah.
And it's regardless of gender, so we love an equal opportunity offender here. But there are times when you're like, wait, which character is this?
There's a couple of guys that
they look so similar. Yeah, and this one especially.
He does, as usual, tie in some like, because the big blonde lady with the ponytail is the big blonde lady with the ponytail in the other books, right? Like
yes.
Yeah, I always forget her name. And so, she shows up a little bit, but she does look a little bit like other people. It's just the body shape can be the defining factor.
And her long ponytail. These are actually, for me, she's the one who always I can recognize.
Well, that's, like, I thought it was her, but but the problem is we have another tall lady now.
Yeah. I thought about you when that happened at the very end because I had forgotten that. And honestly, I think I didn't remember because, again, I did not know who that character was the first time I read it. I was like, oh, this is kind of a random side thing that's happening. But when I reread it, I was like, oh my God, Maddie's going to love this part. But yeah, let's chat about this book and our main character, whose name is Julie. Yeah.
Yeah. So Echo centers around this character named Julie, and then a cast of like surrounding characters. In the beginning of the book, we're introduced to Annie. She is in this like mech looking suit. And from what we can see, thank you. What we can see, some sort of government organization, I guess, or like science organization. That they're testing the suit out. So she's flying through the air and she's testing it, and then they're supposed to shoot things at her, like missiles, like from a plane. And we see her suit is like withstanding some of those blasts. And this part I had to kind of reread it a few times, like make sure I grasp what happened. Because they kept shooting things at her and she kept having to fly higher, and eventually she just explodes.
Yeah. And her suit is quite literally the ship itself. She's not really in a craft. She herself is the craft and has sort of this armor that you can see actually early on as a teaser is fused to her body.
Yeah. So she explodes, and we can see pieces of her suit that are like attached to her, basically, as like pellets, almost like rain, like hard rain, are just splattering out. So our main character, Julie, she's out taking photos, and she's just covered in this. Like, it's just all hitting her, but as if it was rain. But she's like, and it's interesting the way that it's looked. I like the way it's described here and shown, because like little pebbles. Yeah. And then she's saying that, oh, it's not bouncing off because it's hitting the window.
Mm-hmm.
And I think those are, he describes it well. With what I appreciate about him, especially because I've been reading a lot of like 70s, 80s, like Marvel DC comics for the show and stuff. And they would over explain that. And I love that she's just like, she's looking at it. We see it's on her face. She's like, oh, it's not bouncing. That's all I needed. I'm getting the context. And slowly it starts to form on her skin. And the first way it does this, which it's just almost like a breastplate sort of deal.
Yeah.
And you know what, Terry, this is very you. I'm not going to fault you for it.
Yeah, this is very Terry Moore. For this to be and this is a point of comedy, of course, throughout.
Oh, yeah.
But again, not in an exploitative way.
It doesn't feel like it comedy. Is. Yeah. Because it's brought up several times. She's like, I need a shirt. Because when she uses her abilities, it will burn through clothes.
Mm-hmm.
And she's covered, right? But then she's like, I need it, guys. Can you please give me a shirt or like pants or something? Don't make me ruin it again. So she's just trying to figure out, and things are not going well for Julie. She's in the middle of a divorce that she doesn't want, that she is refusing to acknowledge, despite her husband being like, please sign the papers, right? And she doesn't really have any money because her husband's supposed to pay for stuff. But again, she is ignoring the divorce. She's trying to take care of her dog. She barely has enough dog food to take care of him. Life is just not going Julie's way.
Yeah, you know you're low when all you have in your fridge is hot dogs and lettuce, and you have to give the hot dogs to the dog.
Yeah.
And you're having dinner that's just lettuce.
I mean, she made the correct choice, but like, yeah.
Yes.
And then we're also introduced to Dylan. So Dylan is Annie's boyfriend, so the guy who died, or the girl who was exploited at the beginning, who's a park ranger, who has no awareness of, doesn't have a full awareness of what's going on with Annie, but like knows she does something top secret. And then they end up getting connected, whether that's by just coincidence or what we learn to be Annie's consciousness is tied up somehow in that suit because it has bonded to her molecularly. Now, what's interesting about this, you talk about the hard science. He really delves into this throughout. Like he takes time in this for all the scientists to talk with one another about how this works and how the science works. It's very interesting. I was very impressed, honestly. I'd like to read more like background of him writing this, and maybe that's in the newer version or whatever.
Yeah, I think part of why he does that, we didn't say this yet, but he uses this kind of, Terry Moore, that is, uses this kind of framing device for his other works, where an issue will start with a quote, and it's usually a quote that's from the outside material. So actually the first quote in this one, and many of them are by the same author, which is technological progress is like an axe in the hands of a pathological criminal. And that's Albert Einstein. And Albert Einstein, amongst others, is quoted throughout. But I think part of why the science is really important is because you basically see that there are some really corrupt guys who have their own motivations for the weaponry. And then, as we'll talk about, how the weaponry, how the technology is used throughout and how it should be used is the biggest point of contention, to the point of people killing each other, potential nuclear war. And so I do think that part of why that science is brought up continually is so we have an understanding, so that we can see when these ideas of how it should be used clash.
Yeah, and they also find unique ways to discuss it too, which I appreciate. Because they talk about one and one is always equal to, and they use it as a basis to kind of like explore, how you put this matter together and like what exactly that means. And then also like, because there's that at the top, right? We have this big part, but they also have conversations regarding like women in science in a really interesting way, both by how the men talk about it, because there's this women in science, but also talking about the difference of people trying to do the right thing with science and the corrupt people trying to do things with science, and that keeps playing itself in a lot of different ways. It's gonna take us longer than just this to talk about it. We could talk for longer, So we might skim over some things, but
yeah, we'll hit the high points.
Like there's a quote in particular I remember where he's talking about her, and he's like, well, women don't build. Like,
they decorate. Yep.
Yeah, women don't build, they decorate. There's about civilization or empires or whatever.
Yeah, that's right.
They don't build civilization, they decorate, which I think is false, literally. But
Correct.
It was like that's the way that they see them. And then we even have some, like, not really sympathetic, but other scientists we see in here, not necessarily bad, but you also talk about women in like a not great way as well. Like some that we're supposed to be sort of like sympathetic towards later that also hold these like unfortunate views. And even the way the symbiote itself, like the suit itself works, where like if you are a kind presence, you can touch her. Like it recognizes that. But if you approach this person with any sort of like bad feelings or like antagonistic feelings, you are immediately attacked. The suit reacts to your emotions and like.
Yeah, one thing I wasn't sure about that. So the suit, later we know the material is called, I think you would say phi alloy. Is that how you would say that?
Yeah.
PHI, phi. Phi alloy. And as Maddie mentions, we learn that Annie, the person who exploded, somehow fused in the phi alloy. Julie experiences some of her memories and things like that. One thing I was curious about with the suit and what you described, one example is she goes to see the doctor and the doctor gets shocked. His finger gets shocked when she goes to see the doctor. And then she was nervous when she was laying with her dog, like, oh no, the dog climbed on my chest. He's going to get hurt, and he doesn't.
Yeah.
I wondered if that was the phi alloy itself or part of that was Annie in the phi alloy. I'm not sure. I don't know if that ever got explained.
I never got a clear idea of how it worked. I think it could be both. But it could be Annie, because why would Annie want it to be? She knows protection from the doctors, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know. It could just be Annie.
It could be because Annie wants to protect the science because she's worried about whose hands it's going to end up in, and I think maybe the doctor figuring something out would be bad, and so that maybe Annie reacted badly to that. Because in addition to some of the explorations about gender and science and just general motivations, under motivations, one of the other big questions this talks about is when you are talking about big science, revolutionary science, science that will change the game, what is the cost of life? And is there a financial amount that outweighs the cost of life? Which we all understand when it comes to war in like the current sense, but this is like that, but a lot more heightened. And so, yeah, I think Annie's motivations, obviously, as the scientist, as the risk taker, and you get to learn a lot about her in the flashbacks, which is really cool because honestly, she explodes right away, like in the first couple of pages.
Yeah.
So you don't know anything, and you hear Dylan talk about her, but he's more just like trying to find her. And so actually getting to see these like flashbacks is really cool, and it really humanizes her. And she's not just a plot device, which is really cool because I think any other character that would have exploded at the beginning is probably just a plot device. Sorry. So I did like that part as well.
Oh yeah, even seeing her journey, which I think is relatable to a lot of people now too. Like, if she's developing this great science, I really she's a genius, and like it's not about what can we do, but what will we do. Mm-hmm. But people that are in power, they find ways to cut funding. They find ways to trap them and be like, hey, yeah, the only way you continue is if you do this thing for us. And inevitably, it's always war. It's always war-based. And inevitably, it always ends up in the other's hands. And it creates a situation where, because like throughout this, we're having also quotes from like Oppenheimer, and we're talking about the atomic bomb, and how essentially they've created a process where this person could be an atomic bomb just in human form in a way. Like, what does that mean when that gets to other people? So we're also liking it to this throughout the time we're continuing this journey, and it's just it's so well done. So I want to talk about some of the ambiguity in the science. Some of that was really well done. I agree. I think that's best. I think especially when you don't have the sciencey background, I like when there's some ambiguity there because we also spend a lot of the story not knowing until later a bit, like when Annie is in control versus when Julie is in control. We can see the signs with like eyes, but there are times when it's a little less clear.
Yeah.
And that adds to the mystery of it. And it adds like some of the story, like the high tension points. Because at this point, we want her to collect more of the alloy to protect herself and to keep the science away, and to also keep it away from another guy who's got an alloy, who's like one of the antagonists right here.
One of the antagonists is like the guy who owns the company. I'm trying to remember his name actually, and it wasn't coming to me right away. Mr. Maybe it starts with an H. I'll find it. But he's the one who has the Women Don't Build Society or Civilization.
It says Dr. Foster of, because it's of Henry or Henri if you do the French pronunciation of the evil company. Yeah,
so there's that guy, and he's just trying to. He realizes only a certain percentage of the suit was recovered. It was like 18 or 20%. He's like, he's sending everyone out to go get the suit. Then you have this other guy who is at the very beginning.
There's three like villains. Mm-hmm. There's Kane and there's Hong Liu.
He's the guy on the cover.
Yeah. So sorry,
and then, no, you're fine. Kane is the guy who appears at the start of the story. He's hunting also the suit, but you really don't know much about him other than he's really disheveled. He has like a raincoat on, says a lot of almost like religious type fanatic statements. Yeah. And so he's also trying to find her as well. Dylan, for the course of the story, is trying to find Annie because he doesn't really know at the beginning, and even actually a little bit in, that for sure she's died. And then we have another protagonist, probably our third female protagonist, which is Ivy, who's an investigator who is sent by the company to find Julie, but I think has a little bit of a change in perspective once she realizes what everyone's motivations are and how dangerous the materials are. And of note, Julie is a parent, and a parent of a child who, I think she deaf?
Yeah.
Yeah. Who's deaf. And she thinks, what if this suit could, cure her child, could restore her hearing? And so her motivations get really blurred as well. And that's maybe like the positive side, of this suit that could be. And so it's carrying on that theme of like, it's not really the science itself being good or bad. It's like how you use it. And one thing I wanted to say real quick about Adam's comment earlier about the ambiguity, I'm glad you kind of framed it like that, because a thing I was thinking about was about how there's so much that we read, particularly in science fiction, and think about science fiction that was written in the 50s and 60s, stuff that was written then we have now. And it seemed like pseudoscience or pseudo-technology.
Yeah.
And there are things we talk about now, this is a little far-fetched, but like ESP or something like that, where it's like been a science fiction trope for a while, like what if people could? And it's like, I don't know, maybe people can at some point in time, we don't know. And so I kind of like that there's this element of ambiguity, because it's also like science can be a bit magic, because we just don't know what we don't know, and we don't know what's possible. And there's like a scary thing to that. And there's also like big, huge, game changing opportunities to be found there as well.
Yeah, absolutely agree. And Ivy was a great character. Ivy is a fantastic character. I think she's someone that like, especially because Julie, she's very interesting, but she's also someone that like her growth isn't going to have a lot of pathways to it. Like physically, yes, but essentially she's just kind of there to take in all that's happening. She's an unfortunate bystander who's just doing her best. Like, yeah, her life is a mess, but there's not a lot of like time spent figuring out how to fix her life. Really, she's just like, I just have to make it through this and deal with the fact that I'm stuck with weird armor on my body for some reason. So like the growth isn't for her. But Ivy, I think, is like the person that like once she's brought in, she's really funny. Character design wise, so cute. We love it. But she's a character that I really enjoy spending time with as we go. She's the one that's moving the plot. Once she's in there and part of the group.
Totally.
She's the one like, hey, we've got to do this. We have to make this happen. She's the one who is like helping Julie to understand more about her. She's the one who's like learning about Julie. She's like our person.
Yep.
That we get to like cling to, because even Dylan, like, there's not a lot to Dylan, to be honest. He just wants to find his wife.
He's very enjoyable.
Yeah, he's cute
as a character, and he, I think his role as far as like a storytelling device is to ask the questions.
Yeah.
At the beginning, but I do think there's like a baton handoff, like it's like a relay race, and he's the one who moves some of the plot along at the beginning, using those questions, trying to figure out what happened to Annie, connecting the story a bit, and then once Ivy comes. He doesn't play as crucial a role in moving the plot forward, though his scenes are very delightful, and he reminds me a little bit of. I'm rewatching Buffy right now. Hayden,
I got you my new Buffy art I got too.
Oh, okay.
I bought some.
But Hayden, I know that will make you happy. So I just finished season 1, but I think that he reminds me a bit of Xander's role.
Like early Xander.
Sort of the Scooby, and I think that's if I were casting for this book, that vibe would be exactly that.
Yeah. Real quick, I found this very cute store.
Oh my gosh! Oh, I saw this on your social media.
Yeah, so it was like I was down an alley, and it was like something kitschy something, like bubblegum kitsch or something. And this woman, like, she has like pinup-y hair and outfit. I was like, oh my god. And I walked in, and she had like a ton of art. She had like she had a print from Halloween Town of like the taxi driver, and I wish I bought that too. But I was so overwhelmed. There were so many things.
Yeah.
I didn't know how to do, because there's like Scream, like prints from Scream.
I saw the Scream one, yeah.
I was like, oh, and so I was like, I have to buy something. So I settled on this Buffy print to put in my office later.
I love it. No, I love it. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah. Anyways, I just wanted to quick little break. So I got so distracted now. But yeah, I think Ivy's like the real star of this book, and someone that I really enjoyed spending time with.
Yeah.
Because at some point we have this like little moment where, and her relationship with Julie is also interesting, but like they
a little flirty at times.
I was like, are they? In my headcanon, they are.
In my headcanon, after we discussed the ending, they do get together.
That's
because there was this one time. This is the hallmark moment. I think a lot of queer people probably relate to this, which is like you're in elementary school or middle school or something like that. In the United States, when we have gym class, often we'll change like in a locker room, and it's like everyone else is just changing and talking, making direct eye contact because it's not weird at all. But you will often look back at those moments as a queer person where you felt like embarrassed somehow, or like avert your eyes, I shouldn't be looking. And later you're like, oh, it's because like I was probably attracted in some way, even though I was younger.
Yeah.
Part of that's like in your brain. And they have a moment like that, and she's like, why do I feel embarrassed about this? Like, why do I feel weird?
Well, yeah, because she gets more of the suit on her body.
More of the suit.
And then
becomes
she's like
kind
of naked, and she's like, why are you embarrassing? She's like, only in front of you. And I'm like, oh my god, they're gay.
Yep. I mean, there's something there, I would say, at the very least.
Which I think is interesting, because like she, in her mind, she has some weird stuff with Dylan, but a lot of that's because she is connected to
Annie. True, yeah.
And so it's almost like a kind of bait and switch a little bit, which I really enjoy.
That's true. Yeah.
Because it's like, of course she's going to have some feelings for Dylan, because she's literally seeing memories of them being together.
Yeah.
She is hardwired in her to feel something for Dylan because she is connected to Annie. But then there's this weird thing with Ivy, what's happening. And there's this moment where they are sleeping next to each other, kind of they're holding on to one another to heal.
Yeah.
And Annie has set this up because she knows that Annie knows she has the power to heal others if she is physically touching them, and it feels like affection towards them, right?
Mm-hmm.
She's able to heal them that way, and Ivy was damaged.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, but it's a funny way though, because they very Terry Moore. Because they're laying there, and then she's like just like touched. She's holding her boob the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
Which I thought was honestly it's kind of cute. Like it's kind of like,
yeah, I thought it was fun.
To me, I'm like, that's a total normal, like,
yeah.
You sleep next to somebody, you're not thinking it, you know what I mean? Like, it's like, it's one of the, I don't know. I was like, it's funny.
No, I thought it was funny and kind of cute. I didn't think it was weird at all.
And we get this like cute little storyline afterwards where like from this moment, Julie starts getting taller and taller.
Yeah.
And she's like growing, like she's getting like she's kind of beefing up a little bit. And then
Mhm.
Ivy's just getting younger and younger and younger. And at first she's like really stoked about it. And then she starts to get a little too young and she's like, wait a second.
She's basically a child
By
at
the
some
end
point.
of it.
Yeah. There were
I mean,
so many comedic moments.
And they
from
try
that
to like
point
figure
forward.
out why it's happening, but they never fully, I don't think they ever fully explain it, but honestly that's fine with me. I don't need to know why. But yeah, I love their whole relationship and interaction. And by the end of this, I was like, yeah, let's be real.
Yeah, I think there's like a moment at the end that you could feel that.
I think they're just gonna have to be in a weird quad relationship in a weird way because she's got another person in her body. I don't know.
These characters make, I mean, again, I haven't read the 25 years later or the, what's the other one I'm trying to think of that's not.
Well, it's 5 years later, right? And there's something else.
5 years later. What's the 25 that I'm thinking of? 1 second. There's one that is, there's 2 I haven't read that I have physically on my shelf. Every time I search Terry Moore without clarifying, and I've never seen this person in anything. There's an actor, who was born in 1929.
Strangers in Paradise 25. Thank you, Adam.
Strangers in
Paradise. Yeah, we should do that together. I'd like to do a.
Yeah,
and I wonder if that's better not as an old reader, new reader, but as like probably like a Terry Moore live discussion. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, totally.
Like the Terry verse, kind of just like live.
Yeah, I think that would be good.
Who else?
And maybe
Terry
we could
Moore
talk about
us?
one of. We could watch one of Terry Moore, the actresses.
Movies. We should do that.
Like Come Back, Little Sheba is one of them. Oh, she's in the original Mighty Joe Young. I remember the remake of that. From the 90s.
I had a plush from Mighty Joe Young because I loved that movie when I was a kid.
I have not seen any. Oh, she's in Gaslight 1944. That is very famous.
The one that the movie, the phrase comes from.
In Ingrid Bergman, Charles Boyer. Okay, she's probably like.
We should do that. Let's do that. Let's have some like fitting cocktails or something. You know. And I'll cosplay a Terry Moore girl. It just looks like me. The end. You guys, one time I cried in front of Terry Moore because I was just so happy to see a woman who looked like me in a thing.
As you should.
And he gave me a hug because if I feel a strong emotion, I'm just gonna cry. It's just me. It just happens.
That happens to me too.
So yeah, there's a lot. You know, it's gonna be hard to talk about all of this, but there's some really cool characters. I think the character of Hong Liu was very interesting. Because he gets like blown up pretty early on. He's pretty creepy.
Yeah, I can pull up. So he is on the cover, but I think this image gives you more.
That's of like a perfect.
Yeah, he is real weird. I think
one thing I was confused about because he's barely in. He's the most like identifiable with the way he looks. I feel like. But he's not necessarily like the best villain of the story.
No, he's the least developed. You don't get a clear sense of him at all, really, I would say.
Yeah. But, you know. Something.
James just dropped a link, and what I thought you were going to say, James, is you guys already did this book together. And
I know I haven't read this.
Truly feel gaslit. Throwback to our favorite Terry Moore movie, Gaslight. Because we have done that before, but I was like, I have not read this in 13 years. Maddie was like, I've never read this.
Yeah, I really don't own it, so I'll fix that because I gotta have all the Terry Moore stuff.
I know.
But yeah, by the end of this, let's talk about the end. Let's talk about it.
Okay.
Why don't I remember how everything ended?
Yes, so
I did read this. The jet lag, I'm telling, it's weird. Jet lag is weird because I'm not tired, and my brain feels like it's working, but it's like someone just cut some of the cords off.
I feel like that without jet lag, so I understand. So one of the things that's happening that kicks
thank you.
Yes. is the scientists basically go back into this facility. They're going to basically push the red button. I don't know, what is that, the expression or whatever? It's not going to be good. That's happening. They're particularly upset because at this point, Ivy, has turned. They know she's not, out for them anymore, and so they've got to put a stop to this right now. We also have, at the same time, our main group has returned to the site of the explosion here.
Yes.
Um,
now I remember.
There you go. And so basically everyone winds up in the same place at the same time. That is the quick and dirty of how they're getting in there. And at this point, Julie is fully covered, just to give some
and she looks awesome, which is why, like, when you're saying this could be a good intro for like DC Marvel readers, I agree, especially because it's almost as if we're giving you a big superhero background sort of deal.
Totally. Okay. Yeah, you can really see here her height compared to the soldiers at the black hole explosion, as Adam put it. And there's right here the facility that we were talking about. So you can get a lot of perspective of how giant she is and how tiny Ivy still is. Ivy looks like a small child pulling on her arm.
Yeah. Because she jumps in and basically destroys the collider. There's a huge like crack felt through the world. We then move to two of our favorite assassins from other book.
Yeah,
they witness it.
Yeah, Tambi, they're very much a cameo because they don't really play a meaningful
they're not affected
role.
They're just kind of know it's
also there. The Parker girls just
people
need to be around just because they're very tangentially.
And everything works out. Julie wakes up with next to this girl. You know what? I'll share my screen this picture. Where is it? And this is, this is just a way, it just feels so straight. This little movement here, this just feels like just totally normal. Just like looking good, Julie. Let's be real. Julie's doing carpenter work now.
Yeah, that was kind of random because I didn't really see her as
I guess she doesn't really have anything else to do.
She's embracing her new life, I guess, is what's happening there.
But yeah, so after this happens, Julie, from what we first think, is back to normal. Ivy is also back to normal.
Back to
and
normal
they're
size,
just
not a
living the life because her house has been exploded. So Dylan's helping out. So is Dylan's dad. Ivy's back to work doing the investigation. But there's an interesting moment where she's like, "What about Annie?" So no sign from her, like, so alluding us to Annie's gone. But then Ivy speaks directly to Annie in Julie's head, and we see her at the end. Annie's eyes back on Julie's face, so obviously she's still there. And I assume that this comes into play in like 5 years later, like the big Terryverse books, because it would have to.
Yeah, I would think so. Which is why I'm glad that we reread, because honestly, it's not that you said it well earlier. Like Julie, just for the even though at the beginning, the first 2 or 3 issues, they're well done, and that you do get a sense of like how much of a mess Julie's life is, some of the stuff she's working on. One thing we did not mention is she has a sister, Pam, who has gone through a really traumatic event and is kind of just mentally not well, not present, and especially her ability to be any kind of support for Julie, who's going through this divorce. So Julie's going through a lot, but really the suit taking over her body is Julie's plot for the most part. So you really don't get a sense of who she is as a person.
No.
You actually get to know, I would argue you get to know a little bit more about Annie, maybe than you even do about Julie.
No, absolutely. I mean,
in some ways.
We don't get a lot of information about exactly what happened with Pam, right? And that isn't really resolved, which is interesting as well, because we know that we learned where she can heal, and she doesn't try to heal Pam.
Yeah.
No, it could be psychological.
Yeah.
I mean, also, the box suppose, is never. So they keep hinting this box, and she's embarrassed by the box of what's in the box. Ivy's like, I found your box. She's like, oh my God, can't believe you did. Mm-hmm. They never tell us what's in there. And apparently it's also a point of contention in her marriage, whatever is in that box.
It's embarrassing, and she's meant to feel shame from her ex-husband about it. That's kind of like what we learn. But yeah, that we never learn what that is. Really what we hear about Pam, which I did think was nice, is that Ivy really took a shine to Pam because Ivy's daughter really loved Pam. And so it seems like Pam is living with Ivy, or like,
I guess so.
They're close, which again, very interesting setup. So there's a lot of like, one of my issues, I alluded to this earlier, so I'll just say it now that we've kind of gone through the bare bones. I think this is great. I think this is a great starting point. Like I said, what really holds it back, in my opinion, is I thought the pacing was a little weird.
Yeah.
I described my first time reading this, sitting down, reading it all the way through. I did that again for this. But when I say pacing, I don't really mean me as a reader going through it. I mean, like, how the story unfolded. It was a little messy, and you can tell it's definitely, he's obviously improved in this regard with stories that are of similar size. Because this is probably, Rachel Rising is probably a little bit bigger than this.
It's bigger than that. Yeah.
But I would say this is thicker than Motor Girl, thicker than Serial. But not quite to the level of Rachel Rising. And I think it struggles a little bit to pace out its story well. Some of the order of how things occur, and honestly, some of the stuff that did not really need to be included and probably could have made it a bit more linear.
Yeah, I think you could have taken out some things and used that space and time to flesh out other people. I think, Julie's your main character.
Yeah.
And I mean, the thing is, there's so many good things in this book, but there's so many things that I think were poorly done. But I still love it.
No, I agree.
Julie felt flat. And,
totally.
Dylan probably could have used some more. I think he's fun a little bit.
I think Dylan's fun, and he did what he needed
Julie, like the fact that we have Julie and Pam are central characters, and I don't feel like I really have a grasp on them at all. I feel like they're just there. And when Julie grows, and part of this could be Annie's influence, I feel like she does say, like, I feel like I'm losing myself. I feel like she was barely anything to begin with. Because if we knew, if we knew
more, it was so hard.
I'm sorry. If we knew more about Julie,
anything to begin with,
we would be able to pick up more so on when she's losing herself when Annie's there, right? There'd be these little things.
No,
we don't have that.
Totally. No, I completely agree. I would have used a lot of that page count on her. And I think Pam is a side character. However, the traumatic thing she experienced, which we can leave some stuff obviously for people to read for themselves, but like, it's kind of a big deal. And I don't feel like, I wanted to see something about Pam at the end, not because I can't have a mystery, because I agree with that, but when you're going to introduce such a heavy plot point like that, even if it's with a side character, you want to kind of touch base. And I think his way of doing that was to say, like, now Pam has this connection with Ivy's daughter, and Pam experienced the loss of a child, and so this is like a big thing. We presume it's part of Pam's healing, obviously.
Yeah, I would have liked to see that, though.
Same.
Even if it was
just like a few moments,
even if she's still saying what she's saying, if we could see her saying that as we see Pam and Lulu together.
Yeah, it's a good point.
So we have this moment where it's like, and then maybe like a thought from Julie where like this is the first time I've seen more clarity come back to her.
Right. Yeah.
And, like, they're healing each other.
Yeah.
And you could bring that back into like how the power works, right? To be like in close proximity with like the right intentions, and how that can be so healing, right? And then kind of tie that in, right? Because the 1 + 1 does equals 2, and like what's complicated, like you could have. But I agree, Adam. I think Adam's a good point. I think Terry was still trying to figure out how to do a long-term story with characters that were new to him. Because he was, I mean, Terry's been, Strangers in Paris is #1. And it does take time to learn how to like exist with people. Because I mean, that's his babies. And to exist with the other ones and take time.
Well, and Strangers in Paradise, especially how it started, was very much, if not flat out, it was an homage to like a serialized, cartoon, like a saga you would follow, like if Friends was in the back of the Sunday papers. And so it evolved in its story, hugely over the course of time. But it's its own thing, and yeah, I definitely think this is like, you can tell how much reading this and then reading some of the later stuff, you can see how much he's grown when it comes especially to storytelling. And then other than the pacing, the other thing I think is, I didn't mind, and I agree with Adam's comment at 8:55. I didn't want to know what was in the box. I felt like it would be intruding on something that wasn't my business. I'm totally okay with a lot of unexplained things. That box thing didn't bother me so much as like it kind of was kept being brought up over and over and over again, and then there's not too much
for like nothing
to it at the end. Yeah, and even I didn't need to know necessarily what was in it, but again, like I needed it to make a little bit more sense, just even as a concept. I don't know. But
or even like a knowing joke that like alluded to something, like not knowing exactly, but like I would have been fine with I think perfect case at the end, if I was going to rewrite this, but so not says in the box, I would say like I would have Ivy something like, oh well, we can use this later, or be like, wait till I show you mine, you know what I mean? So like just something.
Yeah, totally.
So it's kind of like I don't know, it's equilibrium between the two of them.
Yeah, because it's kind of awkward at the end because Ivy's like, yeah, that was weird. It's like, I don't like that note. But I do think in general, you really go from potentially world-ending explosion to like, oh, I'm building a bench and we're just going to quickly, in a couple.
It was a very abrupt ending.
Super abrupt. So even giving more life to the end, like maybe even some like refrain scenes like you were talking about where we hear the update and we get to see it. We don't get as much of that. It's kind of mostly literally in this backyard where they're talking. And it felt like I wanted a bit more with the characters. So I do hope sincerely that especially Ivy and Julie pop up later, and I have not seen them yet. But yeah, it was still really, I still would recommend it. Like it's still really, it's good Terry Moore, and Terry Moore always good, except for that one book
for that one time
we're not going to talk about. And it was so fun to revisit it. I can see what drew me to it, and I can also see Terry's evolution, but also my evolution as a reader. I was like, what is this? It was so mind blowing, and it's still good, and I would still recommend it. But it wasn't like you can see how much
it's not my top. Too. Yeah, I would feel the same way, because like there's some comics there I've read that I'm like, if I read a different time or a different order, I'd feel differently, right? This is not my first Terry Moore, so I unfortunately I'm gonna always compare everything to Rachel Rising, because that was my first, and then I got into Strangers in Paradise.
Rachel Rising is
my favorite one.
It's my favorite. Strangers in Paradise is most special to me. It was my first. And I don't think anything compares to it, and I mean anything.
Oh, it's fantastic, but it's one of those I'm like, it's a slow burn, but I love it so much. I love spending time with those characters.
Yeah,
they feel so alive to me. It sometimes can be a hard sell. People like, listen, just stick with them.
Rachel Rising is the one I most frequently recommend, and that friend that I mentioned actually, that's one that I would like to gift her eventually to start her into Terry Moore, because I think it's just almost a perfect book to me. I think it's definitely the best as far as like,
God, it's so special.
Yeah,
like that's one. It's been a while since I've reviewed on the channel. Maybe this Halloween I'll be like, you know what, it's time to do it again.
It's always time for Terry Moore.
I want Sean from Compound to read it.
That'd be fun.
A good one to have on.
Yeah.
Rating out of 10, Jessica.
So I rated this earlier, and I was like, I wonder if I'll change my mind as we talked about it. I changed my mind slightly. And when I say I rated it earlier, I mean like in Fable, I gave it a rating, which I gave it in Fable a 4 out of 5, so an 8 out of 10. I think as we've talked about it more, I would probably put it more like a 4.25, so like an 8.5. Like I said, the huge drawbacks are the pacing. I wanted more from Julie, and the ending is super abrupt. And those are three like big knocks in some ways. And then I can think of obviously lots of Terry Moore that I would put above it, and there's only so much room at the top. So it's somewhere around an 8 or an 8.5 for me.
Yeah, my instinct is to say 7.
Whoa, okay.
But I mean, I really like it. I think.
Well, usually you are almost always higher than me. That's why I was surprised. When Maddie rates books like 2 or 1 star, just
it's
I don't burn books, but throw it somewhere. In a pantry.
Because I tend to just really like things. Like if a book is delivered what it should deliver, I'm pretty happy with it. Because there's a rhyme and reason probably to how I rate books, but it's vibes probably, which I hate saying because it makes you sound like it's just vibes.
Vibes is a fine way to rate books.
Sometimes it is.
No.
Yeah, I would say 7 because like I think those things did hurt it for me.
Yeah.
I think that I mean, I really liked it, and the more we talked about, the more I enjoyed it.
I know, yeah,
because I really got to like explore those aspects of it. Because like they're so strong.
Yeah.
But the fact that there's characters we don't spend time with, even though they're main characters, and like, I just think it could have done so much better if we just spent time with it.
Yeah, this is definitely
I think you could have taken out one of the villains because sometimes it doesn't. The villain doesn't necessarily add anything to the story. Especially because by the end, when you do fight back against them, I didn't really feel like it was as tough as it could be. You know what I mean?
No.
So these villains, they didn't really feel like any weight to them. Besides Kane, maybe I think. As far as like physically, he's not.
The scientists. Were the ones for me I would have kept if I had to pick between.
Yeah, I think just take out the rest because I think the thing with Kane kind of confused it, right?
Yeah.
I can see why, because you want to bring in how somebody else would use it, or maybe just take out either take out Kane or take out Hong Leo if you want one actiony person to have in there. I think having both confused it.
Yeah, sure.
It wasn't really compelling for me to have it. It was spread too far.
Yeah, and like you said, you could use the page count for something else. This is when I think that he's never going to do this, but like. If he got the chance to rewrite this, we could shoot up a lot more.
Yeah,
because I think those are easy fixes that he developed over time.
I gave her my name even though I know you're not talking about me.
Oh, we're not taking Kane out. We'll take the other one out. Kane, you can stay.
Yeah. I'm curious to see what you two think of 5 years. We should do it sometime this year. Maybe, but yeah, I think. Yeah, well, I think it's just a Terryverse show. It's easier because if we're gonna talk about 5 years, I think we just need to talk about holistically.
I don't even know how we would do that, but we can.
Maybe make a PowerPoint.
Yeah, it's a good idea.
Just so we have like something to kind of keep pointing at to be like, this is how things are related. I think we have to like, conspiracy board it. Otherwise, I think it's too hard to keep it all together.
Yeah, it's gonna be really hard. Well, we could think of some ideas, but I think it's a good idea.
Yeah, and then I think that'd be fun. Especially make a little Terry Moore cocktail. And then we take a break in the middle and talk about Terry Moore, the actress. it's like our intermission.
I know. Well, I do love like old Hollywood, so I'm like, what have I seen her in anything? It's just funny because she always pops up. And actually, when I first picked this up again a long time ago, I wasn't like, this is like brand new baby reader. I didn't really Google Terry Moore after that. I think maybe I Googled what Terry Moore wrote because it wasn't until Strangers in Paradise, a couple volumes in, which is what I read after this. I was like, it's a man. Because Terry is like in the US at least. He definitely could be a
he writes equally used women as women so well.
Male names.
Like,
yeah, totally.
The man has studied how women move and act and like
I think for me, it's him and Greg Rucka.
Yeah.
When I think of like two male comic book writers who write women extraordinarily well, those are the two.
God, yeah, and the facial
both of
expressions
them
too.
have wives that played a huge role in that from everything we can hear
yeah.
from interviews with them.
Oh, and Terry's wife is lovely.
I know. I love one of my favorite, if I'm sure everyone in this chat knows, but maybe someone who's watching this later on replay doesn't, that Terry Moore does Studio Sundays, which are like, they range. Sometimes they're just 5 to 10 minutes. Sometimes they're like a full hour, but it reminds me a little bit of Bob Ross. So it's like on his YouTube page, and he'll just go through one aspect of the industry or artistry specifically or storytelling. And it's like very comforting. Feels very Bob Ross moment for me.
Yeah.
One of my favorite things to watch every week.
Well, normally I'd be like, let's just keep hanging out. But I think
it's time for bed.
It's time for bed, guys. So I'm still figuring out next month, because I am out for 2 weeks. So I'll report back next week when I'm on here
back
talking about something. Yeah, so I will be out. I'll be away in Japan. It's gonna put on my calendar and tell you which dates. Too bad. You can find out later. There we go. So for next month, I will be out on the 8th and the 15th. I'll be in Japan. And there's no reasonable way for me to show up. So I'll be on for like three times next month. Anyways, I don't even want to tell you that. You didn't need all my planning here live. Jess, thank you for hanging out with me. I look forward to seeing you in person soon, I hope.
Same, yeah.
So I can give you a little weeku.
I'm very excited.
Look at them. I will take a lot of pictures. I'm going to be obnoxious about it. I'm going to eat so much food. I feel so good to travel again.
I know. I want that to be me. Soon. We do have a revolving sushi place now in town. I don't know if you know about this.
My friend is one of the people, her husband co-owns
What? It. Oh. I'm going to go. I'm going next week. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. I'm excited
Very
about
nice. Yeah, thank you for being here. I'll be back next month doing stuff. As usual, I'll figure it out as we get close. I used to post monthly, like, schedules for things. I don't have time for that. That's too hard. And I hope you guys have a good night. If you're catching us later, let us know what you think about Echo and what you would like to. If you have any like suggestions of what you'd like to see on a Terryverse stream, let me know, because I want to do that.
Yeah, I think that'd be great. And we could also see if people want to put their rankings of Terry Moore. I would be super interested to see how people. I imagine Strangers in Paradise makes the top of most. But
you know what? We should do like a bracket.
Oh yeah, March Madness.
I think we make it like a thing. So we just talk about it, and then let's do a little bracket. I think it'd be fun. Maybe invite a couple people. Does other Jess read all the books?
Yeah,
he's like a Terry Moore guy.
I think so. Yeah, I don't know if he's totally
maybe
caught up.
Comic Slayer.
Yeah, fresh back from maternity leave.
Maybe if we're lucky, I miss her very much.
We'll see what Q's rankings of things are as well. Baby Q.
That
Cereal will be her favorite.
I'm like, just put a map out with like, I don't know, toys, and then see what Q does.
Oh, like people do with the Hogwarts house. They'll put their babies on the floor, and then they'll put something like a hat or a T-shirt of each of the houses. And see which one the baby crawls to. That's hard science, baby. Hard science.
That's right. That's true. I mean, listen, we love Peter.
That'd be fun.
Absolutely, Peter.
Oh, that's true, Chris. Yes. Strangers in Paradise Kids would be your favorite. That's true. Right. That's a good call, Chris. Good call. Yeah.
You're right. We should interview Terry Moore sometime. I'm like, listen, Terry, I don't want to ask for your books. I just want to know, like, what are you watching?
What are you doing?
Terry. What are you watching?
I bet he has Buffy the Vampire Slayer thoughts.
Oh, 100%. For sure. For sure. All right. It is bedtime, everybody. Thank you guys for being here. I'll see y'all next time. Check out our Patreon. You know, you guys have been here. Subscribe, like the video. I'm never good at this. Stay minty.
Check out the sponsor.
If this video is sponsored, please check them out.
You're doing so great. We love it. You're winning. Jet lag has nothing on you.
I just want to be back in Scotland. I bought an Outlander necklace too, by the way. Look at me.
I've never seen it.
What?
Yeah. Well, I have watched like the first episode, and I've tried to read the book. I have thoughts, but
don't read the book. It's so
I'll share
racist.
them later. Yeah, but well, okay, we'll talk about it later.
Anyways, good night, everybody. See you next time. Bye.